Welcome to the Cultivating Success podcast. Jeff Sophir and Jonathan Wolfson are brothers and business partners of the top landscaping company, Nature's Experts. Nature's Experts is home to 6 companies that cater to all your outdoor needs. To learn more about Jeff and Jonathan, simply visit us at www.naturesexperts.com. On the podcast, Jeff and Jonathan bring together other business owners and entrepreneurs to share with you how they developed a prosperous company and how you can too. You will gain insights and meaningful advice on creating the building blocks to success and longevity in the entrepreneurial realm. And now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sophir and Jonathan Wolfson.
Michael, welcome to the Cultivating Success podcast. I'm excited to have you here. I'm always interested in learning more about how other business owners can help other people in business and really finding solutions that can help them scale and grow their business and find the right customers. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, and thank you for having me.
So I think you have a twofold business where you're really able to help people on both sides. One of them is helping with teaching, and one of them is really helping with finding your right customer.
Correct. Yeah. So my business is twofold, and my second business was in response to the high demand that I had with my first business. So I, essentially am a remote integrator. I help online business owners mostly and brick and mortar business owners essentially fix, implement, or build their sales and marketing systems. And so in response to the overwhelming amount of business that I was getting and the lack of desire to bring on a ton of employees and scale my business to something substantial, I realized that I needed to show and teach more people to do what I do. And so that's where the Integrator Academy ended up coming from.
Well, it's interesting. I think that, the best way to scale is to continue to get proof of concept. It is to help as many people as you can. And through helping people, usually money comes, but you can't just be like, oh, well, I'm able to help 10 people. I should make this a business. You really, I think, it could turn into something where you have almost a group possibly that, your group turns into a larger company possibly, depending on what the actual reach is of it, especially when you have a solution. It's like, how do I not share this with other people,
Yeah, exactly. And my academy so far is I would call it a big giant family. And so we feed off of each other. We have integrators that I've trained that are really good at specific things, right? And so what'll happen sometimes is I'll have a client approach me and I can't work on them. So I will end up giving it to one of my students and they will end up servicing that client and I will help out in the background if need be. Or maybe one of my students already has a client and one of my integrators that I've taught is really good at emails or content or something along those nurture sequences. And so they'll feed off and they'll help each other out, right? And so they'll end up either splitting the retainer or pay each other or whatever might happen. So eventually this big giant community that we're creating is actually, serving themselves at the same time, right?
So which business did you start with exactly? I think that's maybe the best thing to start with, and let's build from there.
Yeah, so I, a long time ago, back in 2016-ish, I was working corporate tires, sales and service. We were tire shop, blue collar kind of stuff. And we had our first kid and not to offend anyone, had a ton of I call them boomer bosses. So the people that just don't really care too much about the process of having a child, and they kept on giving me stories of I was back to work before I changed the first diaper and weird things and just making my life essentially a pain in the butt. And I was like, if this is what my life's about and it's not family first, I am not working here anymore. So I quit.
Where did you work then?
So I worked at a corporate tire store called Cal Tire.
Okay.
And so they have hundreds of locations across Canada. And so I had a particular zone manager that was very, just very old school and just kept on telling me his stories of how he just put work first before his family. And I just was like, I'm not interested. And he's still working there today. So it would have been a very long decade if I would have stayed with it. But no, I quit. And basically I went into this world of online. I started with multi-level marketing and I started then I went into affiliate marketing, and then I went into marketing agencies, and then I tried e-commerce and I did everything. So I ended up quitting, and that whole year I stayed home and my wife went back to work. It was kind of nice. It was a whole year off and I just spent the time with my son, but in that time, I learned a lot of skills and learned a lot of things online, but nothing stuck. And so I ended up starting a brand new tire shop for someone in town in competition to Cal Tire. And we did fairly well. We very well started up, built the systems, the processes, got the paywalls, the software installed. I got everything ready to go, all the equipment. And then it was like shortly after everything was set up and it was running properly and everything was going well, we made like $250,000 in our first quarter. And I was like, man, I'm good at this. I'm good at this thing, like setting things up and getting things going and, you know, building the systems and all that. So that's where it kind of started. I was like, I'm going to go back and talk to the people I've talked to for that last year I was off. And so from there, they were like, yeah, I'll pay you $1,000 if you can do this for me. I was like, oh, wow, $1,000. Like, that's crazy. Like, you know, I'm Canadian, so 1,000 US is like $1,200 to $1,300. You know what I mean? So that started, and then I ended up growing that particular thing to like about $10,000 a month. And I was still working a full-time job. My wife had stayed home with our second child at that time. And yeah, I was running this business at the same time as working in this tire shop. So I was doing both, but I eventually was at the 10K a month mark and I was like, I'm done. So I went full time back in 2017 and haven't looked back since. And so that's where my company called Social M Solutions was born. And so since then I've been servicing, you know, clients from all over the place, YouTubers and course creators and tax chiropractors, dentists, you name it. I've probably been in the niche and I've helped them all out. And so once I got to a point where, you know, about a year ago, I just had too many clients coming back that were like seasonal and things like that. We're like, hey, we need you again. And I'm like, oh, I can't physically do it. And I don't really want to scale past me and the few employees I already have. So I decided to come up with the Integrator Academy.
Well, I have to say, you know, scaling is a tricky thing. You know, it really is extremely important what your goals are actually. And I think some people don't realize what their goals actually should be, because it's significantly more peaceful. It's significantly easier to have a smaller business with less overhead and to make a lot more money. And not all businesses particularly can really make you that lot more money at the end of the day by making less money. You know, it's not every business really socks the money away for you so you can have it as a nest egg when you sell the businesses. You know, and marketing is a funny thing because it changes so much. You know, it's one of those things where it is always going to be a need. It definitely can scale, but you have to get to certain types of customers, and it definitely can have a value, but it's not the same as a tried and true service-based business where you actually have customers, you have a track record. You know, so much of it is proprietary that you as the owner are directly correlated to the success and failure of the business. To me, it's really extremely smart that you're like, you know, I'm able to really help a lot of people. And how can I do that? I could do that by obviously charging them, but at the same time also to educating them so they can continue to help more people.
Right. And I think it's a different form of scaling that I've become obsessed with. Like I could go, I've been there, I've done $120,000 months myself. You know what I mean? I had a team of like 20 some odd virtual assistants, and I've been there before. I've done that. And you know, yeah, okay, the money was great. Yeah, everything was like pretty cool that time, but I was like, you know, always working. And even at that scale point where I had things pretty zinging and things that there was a lot of SOPs and a lot of people in strategic places, I feel like right now where I'm at, where I kind of scaled down a little bit from there, and now I'm able to actually help out more people build their own integrator business. I think the impact of that, regardless of whether all of that money is coming to me or not, to me, it doesn't matter. The impact I'm creating in terms of like getting these people from their corporate jobs or the things they hate, or the people that have tried to build their marketing agencies and failed or whatever it might have been, and things like that, that's going to be huge. And the way that we're building it right now is going to make me, in my opinion, a lot more money than if I were just to scale my own integrator business, right? And so I think the amount of people we're going to help out throughout, you know, Canada, United States, and even, you know, internationally is going to be even tenfold from what I could have done, right? So,
well, it's a beautiful thing when your customer is everybody, right?
It's so true. Like almost every business that needs some sort of an online presence, I can pretty much help in some regard.
So how do you really start your process of helping somebody? So a lot of times, you know, I have found that it's like, going through finding somebody to help you with marketing, it's a very gray area, and it's very hard to figure out who really can help me, and is it going to provide me an ROI, and how do I measure it, and how long is it going to take? And being a business owner, it's emotionally exhausting sometimes, to where you're like, I just, how many times am I supposed to try to find somebody? How many times am I supposed to keep going after this marketing thing? And the thing is, you can't ever be exhausted from it, because it's such the core of the business,
Exactly. I think where I start is essentially, I call it a vent session. And so it's one of our first meetings that we ever have. And I go like, listen, just vent to me on your biggest time consumers. Vent to me on like what makes you want to stay in bed in the morning and not actually go to work. What are the things that you despise the most? What are your most time consuming things that don't make you money? And we have that process. And I think there's a book out there where you eliminate, automate, delegate, right? And so we go in and we go with that, almost like that strategic, let's get you your time back first. Let's automate what we can, right? Let's delegate what you can't automate, and anything else that you can't delegate and that you have to do yourself or something along those lines. Hopefully that list will be a lot less, where you can spend more time into doing things that are going to make you money, which is like content creation or whatever it might be. And I find that everyone overthinks the whole content and marketing thing. They overthink content creation. They overthink like how it has to be done. Everyone spends a lot of time building one email rather than, strategically maybe making like a giant webinar or a 60-minute live stream of something like that, teaching something. And so a lot of my clients, especially in the online world, coaching and all that kind of stuff, I generally start with like, why don't you guys just do a live stream once a week, teach something specific and record it. And then we just create your content from that. We'll just micro piece it. Now we have, all of your social media posts. We can then take that, we can condense it into emails, right? And different types of email, different lanes of emails, right? For different types of the buyer journey. And from there, the content creation becomes significantly easier, because essentially it's already made, it's already created. You've already gone through it. And so that's how I have been helping out my customers. I have, it's not my method, but it's called the sidewalk, slow lane, fast lane method, or the SSF method. And essentially you're creating different types of content where for people in the different buying cycles of your business, right? You have a sidewalk lane where people they don't really know who you are. And so you have shorter pieces of content, more structured, more branded, things like that. As they engage and as they click and as they like and as they do all that kind of stuff, you lead score them inside of your CRM. And as you lead score them, they automatically upgrade themselves through that engagement to the slow lane. In the slow lane, you have longer emails. Maybe you're taking them off into blog posts to read or to see testimonials. And from there, you're retargeting them for cheap amount of money. And then from there, they're engaging more and more and more with your content. You're giving them more of a lead score. Then they get into, the fast lane. And the fast lane would be 90-minute webinars, 60-minute this, maybe videos, VSLs, whatever it might be, a longer form written content or blogs or whatever it is. And that's where the conversion is going to happen. That's where the trust is. It's a lot less, it's more casual, first name basis kind of stuff rather than the sidewalk, right? And so those are the systems in marketing. And I find the best way to get the content for each of those lanes is to have a clear process in terms of like doing the live streams, doing the webinars, whatever it might be every week or to your free community that you can then micro piece into all of that. So it's been working very well.
So what are some of the questions usually you start with to really help direct them, to that or whatever? So if I was somebody that you were looking to help, and I'm like, what can you really do for me that's different? I've always found, a lot of times it is, we use somebody that helps us with our marketing and our social media. And then we have somebody else that helps with doing pay-per-click, and we have somebody else that helps with doing our websites. And, the whole process is hard because you have to integrate all of it. It's not really that it's like so complicated. You have to integrate all of it. So how do you really fix that solution?
So I personally am a man of like simplicity. So if we can condense the majority of everything that you have to integrate into like one software, for example, that's where we'll start. We'll start with like condensing and simplifying everything that's going on in the business. There's not a lot of companies out there that need it all, right? There's not a lot of companies that need like TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, pay-per-click, and AdSense and all this kind of, you know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of companies out there that need it all. And if they do, it's probably a progression of something that you can work into, right? And so I find that condensing a lot of the softwares, like maybe your booking calendars and your funnels and your websites and your email and your SMS campaigns and the reminders and all this kind of, if you can put it into one software where you can learn that as a business owner and the integrator can help teach and help maintain it, that's where I really like to be. And so a lot of what I do is, number one, consult, but I'll also do a lot of the work. But I'll join your Slack channel or some sort of communication platform, mostly Slack, where I'm just there all the time. You have questions, you have comments, you have concerns, you have slight edits, if anything you need, we're there for you. And so we'll be kind of like that extra hand and helping you build these systems for yourself, not be like this contractor that does it for you. And then if you somehow go off the, I don't know, your internet goes out or something happens and you're no longer there, the whole business doesn't fail or fall apart, right? And so I like to have those systems within the business, and so that the business owner can also essentially know what's going on and how to use it in emergencies and all this kind of stuff. And then we just take on more and more and more bite-sized pieces until we go there. And sometimes I might have to take on setting up the pay-per-click. It is what it is. And then eventually show the business owner when they have time where we're at and how we're doing it, if that makes sense.
Does it work for should every business be utilizing pay-per-click? Like, can they?
No, I personally think that there's the different business models out there. If you're going to be trying to say, for example, you're in the financial education niche, it's going to be extremely hard for you to compete with like pay-per-click inside of like the amount of budgets that people have in that regard, right? You should be able to have like retargeting campaigns and stuff like that set up. Those are pretty easy where you can have AdSense and all that kind of stuff. But not every company. If you're doing like local, like you're a brick and mortar chiropractor or something along those like pay-per-click, absolutely, right? If you have a behemoth of a chiropractor next to you though, and they're spending $300 a day, it's going to be kind of hard to compete with those people as well, right? And so you just got to kind of take.
What do you do in a situation like that then? If you are a chiropractor and you have a behemoth that's in the area, or even if you're a service business and there's one really large plumber in the area, how do you recommend to navigate that to grow and have a successful company?
You can't catch it all, right? And so if, for example, you have someone that's actually drowning out the majority of the market and stuff like that, the cool thing, I guess not the cool thing is, but there's always going to be drop off and there's always going to be a chance where they don't answer the phone. There's always going to be a chance where your ad is going to show up for sure. So if, for example, that's happening and you have a $70 a day budget compared to the $300 a day, you can still run it and you can still catch a lot of the stuff that's missed. But the things that'll separate you from your competition, for example, is like Google My Business and 5-star reviews, or setting up Facebook and Instagram ads and things like that, right? So a lot of what I do in regards to like Google My Business for local businesses, right, is I'll set up like automatic text backs, right? So for example, you miss a phone call, we're automatically going to be texting that number right back. So instead of someone going in your Google My Business or Google listing and scrolling down to the next HVAC person, you're automatically texting them back because you're too busy to answer that phone or something like that. And generally that's what'll happen in Google, right? Like if you call the first person and they don't answer, you're going down to the second one inside of Google. It's generally how it happens. But if before you get there, we text you back, we're going to be catching a lot of that, right? And so with that, that's what like one of the things that we'll do. We'll optimize, send up pictures, we'll get better keywords inside of your Google and all that kind of stuff. And we'll just make sure that is optimized, and also set up some sort of a review campaign, get some 5-star reviews so you can hopefully, bump yourself up above inside of that line, inside of the lineup of the Google My Business, and then setting up some like easy retargeting campaigns and Facebook and Instagram ads work extremely well, right? So there's things to do, and there's not one business that can catch it all for sure. There's just no way.
Interesting. So the next thing I'd like to go over and talk to you about is, how do you really get results? Is it business specific, or do you guarantee results, or how do you really help your customers, ensure that they feel ultimately comfortable with being like, all right, I, want to move forward, but I'm just concerned, like, how are these results gonna, be able to pay for the ads? Is that something that you're more confident that you tell people after the fact, be like, listen, trust me, this is our process, this is how we do it? Or do you usually refer them to other people to kind of ease that transition as a customer? Because I feel like your business specifically, it's not easy. A lot of people have had bad experiences, and it's not like I've had a bad experience, I still have to do it. the smaller businesses, when they have a bad experience, they sometimes choose not to do it.
Right. I think the bad experiences come from and I think we're specifically talking about like marketing agencies, for example. And a lot of the bad experiences come from, these companies that offer like just a one size fits all solution. We run Facebook ads, we run Google ads, and we run them to this funnel, and we have an application process, and then you're supposed to phone them. That's it. And that's all we do. Right. And so I find that those, sure, they might work. But at the same time, we're not setting up like the long-term nurture campaigns. We're not setting up the automatic text backs. We're not setting up the retargeting campaigns for keeping the warm traffic warmer or the cold traffic that came in, we're not converting them to warm. We're not doing any of that kind of stuff. And so I find that like, sure, I could come in and run a marketing agency and offer the same thing that everyone else is, but I'd rather just come in and like set up your business. So that way, like at the end, if I were to leave, you still have all the systems yourself, right? Whereas marketing agents, they come in, they almost have their own CRM that they're putting the leads into. They have their own thing that they're doing. They have their own signature processes that aren't part of yours or whatever. And at the end of the day, you fire them, you get a CSV with all your leads. You know what I mean? They're not in your CRM, still going through a nurture campaign and all that. So the difference between, I think, what we can do for businesses and what other people can do is like, we're going to be there building up the entire system for you. So guaranteeing results is like pretty hard in terms of like, you're going to get like X amount back and I'm going to trust your sales process and all this kind of stuff. But I've almost never had any client be unhappy with the work we perform and the amount of time that we save. We can almost on day one immediately relieve like hours and hours of weekly tasks just by automating a lot of the small things that they're already doing. And so just from that, in the first week or two, we're already buying back their time so they can spend more time doing what actually makes them money, right?
Well, I think that's one of the main things of helping people is buying back that time and being able to help more people and spend their time trying to make more money. I think everyone's trying to buy more time back. I think that's a big key. So I think that this is a great, segue into, letting people know how can they connect with you so that you actually can help them, because I think it's really important that, people know who they can go to continue to keep finding somebody that I like the idea of someone who is going to set it up for you versus bring you onto their platform, because the whole process in general is not the same. You know what I mean? You're a number when you're going into someone's system, and it might have a success rate, but at the end of the day, it's input, output, and everyone still needs to use Google. Everyone still needs to use Facebook. And there are definitely apps that help integrate and make it easier. But you as a customer, you want to make sure you can have a long-term plan. And then once you buy in that trust, if there's an integrated app you can do that'll track it and all that stuff, I like the idea of doing it directly.
Right. Yeah. And so 100%. And ways to, I suppose, get a hold of me, like you mentioned or whatever. I think that's what you mentioned, right? You mentioned like how to get a hold of me.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I think the best way, especially if you need help, is to just contact me through socialaimsolutions.com. There should be a booking link on there, easy to find. If not, my phone number should be on there as well. You can also find me on Facebook, right? If you look up Michael Dallas-Peterson with SEN, one of the only profiles. There's a lot of fakes out there that are trying to be me, but my profile is pretty unique. And then if you are not a business owner and you want to learn how to become an integrator and help out business owners like I do, then you can go to theintegratoracademy.com, and there should be a nice BSL. You can watch a training on 5 steps that I use to start my business, and then you can book a call with me.
For the integrator, is it something where, do you ever recommend business owners to, become an integrator actually and go through the Integrator Academy, or only people who are into starting their own business to be able to help people?
So it depends on your business type. Like if you're already helping out, you're already doing like business consulting, or you're doing something along those lines, then it's not a bad idea to add something to your, bag of tricks in terms of like what you offer, right? If you already have something that is helping out business owners, then absolutely. If you wanted to, learn from me to, set up your own business yourself and become that expert in say CRMs and, Zapier and, automations and autoresponders and things like that, then I would happily teach anyone. It doesn't matter exactly what you're going to be doing with it, but either way, I'd be happy to help. So.
Well, I would say that's extremely valuable. The fact that you're willing to help people like that, I think shows that you really stand behind what you've learned and you really want to be able to help people.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's the only reason that the Integrator Academy was born, was because we need to help more people. There's not enough of us out there right now. So.
No, there definitely isn't. And the thing is that's tough about it is that, once you turn certain things into a business, things move so quickly that you start worrying about the business versus your customer sometimes. So
Yeah.
I like the fact that you've kind of separated this to where you can help the most amount of people versus only helping yourself.
Right.
So Michael, thank you very much for joining us today. I think this is a great conversation, and I think that people definitely should reach out to you at a minimum to just learn, but at the same time too, that this could be obviously a new tool to help you really figure out how you can dive in and make sure that you are optimizing your business and your marketing strategy so you can get the right customers and find what you should do, because marketing is an extremely important part, I think, to everyone's business, regardless if the biggest company is in your area and they have the biggest market share. There's ways you need to figure out how you don't have to compete, but you can get some of their customers, because everybody's not going to one particular customer. It's a large pool of people. They might have 25%, but there's still 75% going somewhere else. And it's, about focusing more on how to not go after their customers, but go after the other 75% that are going to other directions and going to other companies.
Yep, exactly.
Well, Michael, thanks again so much. We appreciate you joining us today, and we look forward to talking to you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
This has been the Cultivating Success Podcast with Jeff Sophir and Jonathan Wolfson. To learn more about Jeff and Jonathan and their businesses, visit www.naturesexperts.com.